Hello and welcome to MakesSenseMath. Today we're going to be looking at factoring trinomials. Now just to let you know, this is my first math tutorial video. I am still getting used to the hardware and the software that comes along with making this type of video. So my writing might be a little tad bit messy for the first few videos that I do, but I really hope to improve on that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Alright, so looking at factoring trinomials, well, first, before we even delve into that, you have to know how to do a couple of things before we even try to factor a trinomial. Okay, so the two things are expanding and common factoring. So let's just make sure, and you can be writing this down at the same time as me, okay? I'm trying to figure it out at the same time. Actually, what I would like you to do is actually be writing this down on a spare sheet of paper. Okay, so the first thing that you have to know how to do is expanding, okay? You have to know how to expand something. So pretty much when you expand, okay, you're getting rid of any brackets that are in your expression. So by the way, an expression, maybe like, what is an expression? An expression is just pretty much an algebraic thing, I guess, algebraic expression that doesn't have any equal signs. By algebra, I mean there's variables and numbers in there. Okay, so first of all, expanding. Now you've probably seen this before. Maybe you've seen it in grade 8 or 9. Okay, but pretty much with expanding, we want to get rid of those brackets. Well, how do we do that? Okay, so the way that you get rid of those brackets is by multiplying this outside term to the first inside term. So first you want to do that, and then second of all, you take that first inside term and you multiply it by the second term inside of the bracket. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing that we had to do was 3x multiplied by x. What's 3x times x? Well, 3x squared. Good. So what's 3x times negative 2? Well, 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, and we have that x there, right? So that's expanding. So I want you to think about it this way. Expanding, you end up with no brackets in the end. No brackets. Ooh, writing is a little messy. It'll get better, I swear. Okay, so that's expanding. The second thing that you need to know how to do is common factor. Some people call this simple factoring. Factoring by taking out the common factor or the greatest common factor. I'm just going to call it just plain simple common factoring. Okay, and you're going to see that common factoring is actually the exact opposite, really, of expanding. So I'm going to give you this little example here. 4x squared, so 4x squared plus 8x. And I'm going to ask you to factor this by taking out the greatest common factor. Okay, so another way to look at that, or you can think about it this way, right? This is my little thought bubble here. What term can you divide both 4x squared and 8x by in order to get a nice whole number? So 4x squared and 8x, well, those can both be divided by, what do you think? You're probably shouting at your monitor right now. No, you're probably not. 4x squared can be divided by 4x, and 8x can be divided by 4x. Now, on a test or an assignment or something like that, you're not actually going to show it this way, okay? Because if you actually divide 4x squared by 4x and 8x by 4x, you just end up completely changing the value of your expression. So this is just to show you that you can divide both by 4x. Now, always on the side of your paper or something, and I highly encourage this, on the side of like a test or an assignment, if you have trouble seeing this and you need to actually draw out that you can divide both by 4x, just go ahead and do that, but make sure that you put it into a thought bubble So your teacher knows that you're not saying, this is part of my answer, okay? So what was the whole entire point of figuring out our greatest common factor? Well, what we do there is our greatest common factor, which is 4x, goes in the front. 4x, okay, goes in the front, and we open up a bracket. Now we've got to think to ourselves, what do I have to multiply 4x by in order for it to equal 4x squared? Well, 4x times x will equal 4x squared. Same thing here. What do I have to multiply 4x by in order for it to equal 8x? Now, if you're having trouble coming up with this on your own or following along, or you're a little bit confused, I highly suggest that you go back and you do some practice on expanding and common factoring before we move on. As well, you can always post your questions in the comments section, and I'll gladly help you out. So, getting back to this, here with expanding, we have no brackets, right? Check it out. We went from brackets to no brackets. With common factoring, well, what happened? We started off with no brackets, but now we have brackets. So here I'm going to say yes brackets instead of no brackets, although that's grammatically incorrect. I think you know what I mean. Yes brackets. So if you can see, these are actually exact opposites of each other, okay? For expanding, you're going from a bracketed form to a non-bracketed form. With factoring, you're going from a non-bracketed form to a bracketed form. So make sure you are comfortable with doing both of these, so both with expanding and with common factoring, before you move on to factoring trinomials. Because if you just jump into factoring trinomials without being able to do these guys, then you might get a little bit discouraged, and I don't want that to happen. So if you are able to do this, if you're extremely confident that you can do many examples just like this, then click on the video link to the right, and we will look at, first of all, what is a trinomial, and we will get into factoring those trinomials. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon.